The major scale is the foundation of almost every song you know. But here's the truth. If you just run it up and down like math homework, you'll never sound musical. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how we could practice the major scale in simplest way possible, one string at a time, and explore the techniques that make it expressive. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, bends, and vibrato. This is where scales stop being dry and start sounding like music. The major scale is built on a formula: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. A whole step on the guitar equals 2 frets. So if I take the 3rd fret on the A string and move up whole step, that's 2 frets forward. Whereas half step is 1 fret at a time. If I play C major on the A string, starting on the 3rd fret, C to D is a whole step, 2 frets forward. D to E is a whole step, 2 frets forward. E to F is a half step, 1 fret forward. F to G is whole step, 2 frets forward. G to A is a whole step, 2 frets forward. A to B is whole step, 2 frets forward. And B to C is a half step, 1 fret forward. And I could also go backwards. C to B is half step back, 1 fret down. And then B to A is whole step apart, 2 frets backward. A to G, whole step apart, 2 frets backward. G to F, whole step apart, so 2 frets backward. F to E is half step, so 1 fret backward. E to D is a whole step apart, so 2 frets backward. And lastly, D to C is a whole step apart, 2 frets backward. Playing horizontally forces you to understand the interval relationships instead of just memorizing box shapes. Now here's where the major scale becomes expressive. Every time you move from one note to the next one, you can decide how to connect them. Let's break down the 5 main techniques that you can use. Starting with a hammer-on. A hammer-on means you pick the first note, then you tap another finger onto a higher fret so it rings without picking again. Here's an example. If I play C at the 3rd fret of A string, I'll go ahead and take my ring finger, tap onto the 5th fret, and don't be shy with those tapping. It makes the connection smooth and flowing, almost like the note jumps forward. You could apply the same thing from D to E, same thing for E to F, and all the intervals you could explore the hammer-on. The next technique is a pull-off. A pull-off is the opposite. Pick the higher note, then lightly flick your finger off to a lower note so it rings out. Here's an example. I'll go ahead and play E, which is on the 7th fret of A string. Now when I set up a pull-off, I will have my other fingers set to the target note I'm pulling off to. So I have ring finger on the 7th fret A, and my first finger is set onto 5th fret A. So I'll go ahead and pluck and then flick down my ring finger so that the next note is rung out. And you could do this on different set of intervals as well. That's D to C. Here's F to E, G to F. And this gives a falling and relaxed sound. Our next technique is slide. A slide connects a note by gliding your finger along the string. Pick the first note, then push to the next fret without lifting your finger. For example, if I play the note C, 3rd fret on the A string, then slide up to the E, which is located on the 7th fret. It sounds like a singer, like the guitar is singing between the notes. Here again, feel free to explore jumping between different degrees of the scale. So you could go from a root to the 2nd, a root to the 3rd, root to the 4th, and so forth, so on. Our next technique is bending. Bending means you pick a note, then push your string against the fretboard until you hear the pitch reaching another note. The B string is perhaps the easiest place to practice this, especially if you're new to bending. So let me show you an example. I'll go ahead and play the note G placed on the B string. This is on the 8th fret. And I'll have my ring finger as the fretting finger. Now, a tip I could give you is your other fingers, you're welcome to put them together. So when you're bending, it's quite the physical demand on your fingers. You have more power to really get to the next pitch. So I'll go ahead and play this note, and I'll bend up. Now, if you're new to bending, it's easy to not be aware of how much to bend. So oftentimes you could check your target pitch by playing the target note first. In this case, my target note is A, placed on the 10th fret of B string. Okay, and I'll listen to that note for a second, maybe even sing it. Da. Now I'll go back to my 8th fret. Now I'll try to bend into that pitch. That would be considered a whole step bend. And a half step bend is where you take a note and you bend it just enough so it sounds like the note half step apart from that note. So an example for that would be, I'll play the note E on the B string. That's the note I'm gonna bend into F, which is a half step apart. So I'll check for my target pitch. Da, F. Okay, now I'll try to bend into that. So explore those two variations of bends, and that will make your note very expressive. Our next technique is vibrato. A vibrato gives life to a note. Once you land on a note, wiggle your finger slightly up and down. When you catch the note, imagine you're shaking your wrist side to side. So let me go ahead and pick a note. In this case, the note E on the B string is placed on the 5th fret. And I'm gonna grab this note with my index finger. And when I fret that note, it's really relaxed. So you could move up and down the string, which is more of a common way to introduce vibrato. And there another form of vibrato is the side to side. This one is a lot more subtle, but there's a time and place for it. Instead of sounding flat and static, the note feels alive and expressive when you add the vibrato. So when you practice the scale on one string, don't just play the notes. Experiment with hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, bends, and vibrato, because those are part of phrasing, and phrasing is what gives you a voice on your guitar. Here's the assignment for this particular lesson. Go ahead and practice C major scale horizontally on all 6 strings, one finger at a time. For each interval, explore different expression techniques. Then play along with a 3-minute backing track every practice session. And you could segment the backing track into however you like it. And remember, scales aren't just notes, they're language. Expression is what makes them speak. For the closed scale practice, go ahead and pick a key center of your choice and see if you could play the major scale on one string using one finger only. Now you're welcome to cycle through all the 4 fingers, but using one finger at a time. say the scale degree, or better yet, sing the scale degree as you play the note. For each connection, explore different expression techniques. Those are your hammer-ons, pull-offs, slide, bend, and vibrato. For this exercise, don't rush. Focus on clarity, accuracy, and your sound and your control. This is where technique meets ear training. Now for the open skill practice, we're going to bring in the backing track. It's roughly 3 minutes long. For the first minute, play the scale on one string, experimenting with expression techniques. Hammer-ons, slides, pull-offs, bends, vibrato, and try to combine those techniques. For the second minute, choose 3 to 4 notes on one string and make small melodies. Think like a singer here. And imagine you're calling and responding to your own melodies. The last minute, connect across multiple strings, thinking call and responding. Slide into a new string, bend into anchor notes, land with vibrato. You could do whatever you like here. Here again, with open skill practice, explore and experiment as much as you can. The goal here isn't speed or filling space. The goal is to make major scale sound like melody.